I am going to teach you how to power clean start to finish using the same method that I use to teach clients, and I'm even going to the gym on my rest day to do so. You might have seen me play around with a little bit more longer form content just recently, and one thing I've learned from that is it's basically impossible to talk to the camera, for me anyway, to talk to the camera, give a bit of value and have a normal training session. So we're doing it with one specific trip today. So let's go.
So getting started with our power clean, start to finish. Few pieces of terminology that we should be familiar with. First one being front rack position. That is where we're going to finish. That's where we're going to receive the bar. And essentially that entails us loosening the grip and having our elbows nice and high to create a shelf for the bar to sit on. So we're nice and stable when we do receive that bar. Second thing is hook grip. This is a non-negotiable when it comes to Olympic weightlifting. I'll show you just with my palm facing the camera so you can see it. But essentially we wrap our thumb around the bar and then our fingers around our thumb. That acts as a bit of a safety mechanism. So if we do drop the bar slips into our fingers as opposed to slipping out of our hand completely. First variation that we're going to run through with the barbell is a high hang muscle clean. So essentially that is the most basic, the most simple form of clean that we can perform. That gets us used to using our legs. So what we're going to do, we're going to step up to the bar, feet about shoulder width apart. Not going to worry too much about our footwork. We're going to go on to that next. With hook grip, just outside your legs, grip that bar, and then you're going to deadlift it to your hip. From this position, I like to teach people to pull the shoulders back and down just to help us maintain a bit of tension through the trunk. And then we're just going to go to what's known as our down position. So note, I'm just sinking about 2 inches directly down, not allowing my torso to come forwards. And then from there, I'm just going to extend and pull the bar to my front rack position. So I've deadlifted the bar, pull my shoulders back and down, I sink my body height, I'm going to extend through my lower body and pull the bar into position. So it's important if we are just starting out to not be afraid to just use the barbell alone. I've just got some weight on there for a bit of feedback. What we're focusing on that high hang muscle clean is pulling the bar into position and obviously just getting used to our first step of our start position and how we're going to build that into our hang and then long term our power clean. So moving on to our high hang power clean variation, we need to first of all leave that barbell alone. We are just going to get used to some footwork. So with our start position, that is where we feel most comfortable in performing a vertical jump. So without thinking too much, just perform a vertical jump on the spot. That is going to be your strongest position for exerting force in the Olympic lifts. So perform that vertical jump, take note of your start position, and then you're just going to find what's known as your receive position, which essentially is where you feel most comfortable performing a squat. So chances are you're very familiar with that position anyway. You could just perform an air squat to see where that is, and then those are our start position and our receive positions. Now moving on to utilizing the barbell for this variation, what it's going to consist of is the exact same setup, but we're going to allow our lower body to do a little bit more work, and we're also going to move from our start position to our receive position. So whereas in the hang muscle clean, we were pulling that bar into our front rack position quite actively with the upper body. Now the upper body is just facilitating the power that we exert into the floor with our legs. So it's going to look like this. Step up to the bar in your start position, hook grip just outside your legs. You're going to deadlift that bar up to start with, shoulders come back and down, you sink your body height, and then from there, utilizing the power from your lower body, you're going to exert and move from your start position to your receive position. So it's going to look something like this. Some important things to note with that high hang power clean variation is that my extension is entirely vertical, exactly the same as it was when we were finding our start and receive position. So that vertical jump, that's what we're looking to replicate from that start position. Moving on to our next variation, this is known as the hang power clean. And the only difference is we move slightly deeper into our start position. So if you're familiar with deadlifting, you might be familiar with the term hinge. And essentially hinging means pushing your hips to the back of the room. So our start position is going to look something like this. We're going to deadlift that bar up, stand nice and tall, shoulders back and down. We're going to drop our body height, and then just like an RDL or the start of our deadlift, we're going to send our hips to the back of the room. In this variation, we're only descending to just above the knees. Start position with my feet, hook grip just outside my legs, deadlift the bar up, shoulders back and down, drop my body height, send my hips to the back of the room until the bar is just above my knees. Then from there, keeping the bar nice and close to my body, I'm gonna drive my legs into the floor and fully extend with that vertical extension. So full speed, it's gonna look something like this. You will notice that now moving from this new start position, there is an element of contact with my upper thighs. If you are a beginner, I would recommend not even worrying about that to start with. The trouble is, if we start worrying about making a contact, we end up punching that bar away from us, which means we have to jump forwards to receive it. Ultimately, if there is a contact, we want to think of it like an uppercut in boxing, like an uppercut of a punch, so it hits the bar up, as opposed to hitting it out away from us. But if you're a beginner, if you just focus on keeping the bar nice and close to your body and driving your legs into the floor with a nice vertical extension, that's going to happen as a byproduct of that. Right then, on to our next variation. We've got our high hang muscle clean, we've got our high hang power clean, we've got our hang power clean. Now it's our low hang power clean. And the setup is exactly the same. All that happens is we just continue to send our hips to the back of the room for a little bit longer so that the bar now starts just below our knees. One thing to remember with this variation in particular is from our new start position, it's going to be a little bit more important that we initiate by driving our legs into the floor. If we don't do that, our hips might have the tendency to rise a little bit soon, which will affect our ability to use the legs, which is quite important when it comes to a nice efficient lift. So moving to our low hang power clean, nice and slow, talking through all of the steps as we go. Feet are in our start position, hook grip on the bar just outside our legs. We deadlift the bar up, pull our shoulders back and down, drop the body height, send the hips to the back of the room, and we continue to descend until the bar is just below the knees. From there, we're going to drive our legs into the floor to initiate that nice and vertical jump, which is ultimately going to form our low hang power clean. So full speed looks like this. Now, as we move closer and closer to the floor, if we've got a history with deadlifting, the temptation can be to start by tucking our chin and start looking at the floor from this start position. With the Olympic lifts, it's always good practice to pick a spot on the wall opposite you, just above your eye line, and stay focused on that spot throughout the entire lift. If we tuck our chin, the rest of our body will start to follow and it will affect our entire coordination. So pick that spot just above your eye line on the wall opposite you, stay on that spot throughout the entire lift. So now we are onto the moneymaker, the power clean from the floor, and that introduces one more technicality that we need to be very aware of, and that is essentially keeping the angle of the back the same until the bar passes our knees. And a good way we could think about that is if we're on a leg press machine, our torso angle can't change at all, we're fixed in place. The only thing that we can do is drive our legs into that plate to move the weight. And that's exactly the same thing that we need to do for what's known as our first pull, so when we initiate our power clean from the floor. So the good thing is, in finding our start position of our power clean, it's exactly the same as everything we have already done before in those movements, in those variations leading up to this. All we need to do is just sink a little bit lower in our start position. So without the bar to start with, I'm going to get my feet in my start position. I'm going to stand nice and tall, shoulders back and down, drop my body height, send my hips to the back of the room until my hands are just below my knees. Then from there, I'm going to sink just by squatting down ever so slightly to that start position. Here is where we want to think about starting our clean from and maintaining the angle of our back until the bar passes our knees when we come to obviously initiating that lift. So, accessing our start position when we are on the barbell. Just going to move it slightly closer. Process starts exactly the same without touching the barbell. Shoulders back and down, drop our body height, send the hips to the back of the room, hands are just below my knees, then I'm going to sink down to my start position. Using hook grip, I'm going to drive my legs into the floor, making sure that I maintain the angle of my back until the bar passes my knees. From there, I'm going to aim for a nice vertical extension. Full speed when I'm not talking at the same time, so it might be a little bit easier for me. When we do get to power cleaning all the way from the floor, obviously that is our most technical variation, as I've already mentioned, so that can introduce a few common errors. And from the floor, one of the most common errors that I see is people dropping their hips far too low in their start position, which ultimately means they have to pull the bar out and around their knees. when we are performing any Olympic lift, we want the bar path to be nice and close to our body, and we want it to not stray away from us at any point. We want it to be its most efficient path from A to B. And obviously if we've got to go around our knees, you'll see we sink too low, that bar is going to come out and around our body, which is exactly the opposite of what we're looking for. So just making sure that we get to that nice position. A really good marker for that is thinking about the crease of our armpit being directly over the bar until the bar then passes our knees. That's a good marker for if we are in a correct starting position and if we are maintaining the angle of our back until the bar then passes our knees. So just to reiterate, a poor start position would be this. A good start position with a crease of our armpits over the bar would be that. But like I have shown you in this tutorial all the way through, try, if you are a beginner especially, to always access that start position by running through all of those steps in the build-up. That way we can be really consistent with how we exert force into the floor. Hopefully that simplifies things a little bit for you if you are learning the clean from scratch, and hopefully that allows you to see why we should always learn it from the top coming down, because we can progressively make the lift more and more technical, and we can slow down and only perform the variation that we can bring quality to before we then go on and progress. So hope that helps. See you later.